Hello, my name is Lindsay Dixon. I am a pharmacist from British Columbia, Canada. More importantly, I am a mom to 2 children, and these children will be going back to school in September. As a parent, I understand the anxiety that we are all feeling about sending our kids back to school. In this video, I'm going to discuss a few important points about viral transmission. I will explain a little bit about the layers of protection that we have in place in schools and in the community and how those work together to protect our children. And I will also go over some ways that we can be proactive as parents in keeping our schools, our children, and our community safe. Okay, so just something briefly about viral transmission. So a virus is not actually something that is alive. A virus must have a host to survive. So basically, it needs to get into a cell to be able to replicate and then go on to infect other cells. And it does that by infecting a host. And usually that host is in the form of a person. So when we are seeing transmission of this virus, usually we are seeing it through close person-to-person contact in indoor settings. The virus can survive on surfaces for some time. However, that is not the primary mode of transmission that we are seeing. The concern comes when we start to move indoors and have more close contact with individuals. That is why physical distancing is so important, and that's why the conversation around masks has also come up. So I just want you to understand here that the virus comes from somewhere. It is not everywhere, and it is not something that just comes out of nowhere. It comes from somewhere. It has to get into the schools or the community via a host. And so we're going to discuss that a little bit more. So what is the good news? So far, we do know that there has not been very much transmission of this virus in our communities in places like daycares, preschools, and day camps. And there's been a lot of day camps that have been open. Now, the argument here will be, well, maybe those day camps have been able to have smaller numbers, which in often cases they have, and they've been able to be outside more. And when we're talking about schools, the big concern is moving indoors. But this information, I think, is still quite valid. Of course, we're seeing a lower quantity of cases in schools because they've mostly been closed. But in camps and daycares, the cases have been low, and in some cases they have not even there haven't even been cases. So that is comforting because that is showing us that there is not very much community transmission going on, and that is a good thing. That is a good thing for families, and that is a good thing for schools. It's also a good thing for our economy, but that's kind of a side note. Okay, so what is the big picture here? So the big picture that I really want you to understand is that whatever happens in the community as far as transmission and caseload goes is very closely linked to the risk that occurs in schools. And so if we are seeing a high incidence of community transmission, then yes, we should be more concerned about what is happening in schools. The inverse is also correct. If we are seeing very low community transmission, and in many places in British Columbia and in Canada right now, we are seeing very low transmission, even if our cases are slowly increasing in BC, then the chance of the virus actually getting into schools is very, very low. So there are certain ways that we can reduce our risk. So there is no way to know for sure whether the virus is in the community because it's invisible and it doesn't show up until we can actually track it via testing. And often that doesn't show up right away because there is a bit of a lag time between the onset of when a person is actually contaminated with the virus and the time that the person actually presents symptoms. So there are some precautions that we can take and some things we do need to understand that I'm going to go over here. So we can understand the layers of protection that are in place. So there are going to be layers of protection within schools, and there are going to be layers of protection within the community, and I'm going to go over that with you. And then we can also consider limiting our community exposure. So let's think about what activities, what things that we should be involved with, and what things maybe we could hold off on until maybe another season, another year, something like that. And this will vary according to each family. So if you have someone in your family who is maybe immune compromised, elderly, if each family needs to evaluate the level of risk that they are comfortable with. And that is a really important thing, that what is okay for one family might not be okay for another family. And so each family needs to make these decisions together and make them carefully. So here I'm going to have, this is a student, okay? This is a student in school, and we're going to call this student Quinn. So Quinn is in school here, and we're going to talk about what have we done as a community and as a school to protect Quinn, okay? So we're going to go over different layers of protection. So one layer is hygiene. So we know that individual hygiene, lots of hand washing, hand sanitizing, sanitization of buses, more cleaning of schools is something that is being implemented right now. So we'll call that one layer. Another layer will be distancing. So trying to distance children more in schools, the presence of physical barriers where physical distancing is not possible, spacing apart of desks, being careful about traffic flow, having hallways only go in one direction or the other direction depending on how wide they are, and in some cases the use of masks is also being used, so that's another layer. Then we have learning groups, restricting the amount of students that can be associated with each other or can be mingling together throughout the course of the school season is another layer. Ventilation, so schools are looking into how they can provide more adequate or ventilation or upgrade their ventilation systems, and this is happening right now. Another issue around ventilation is that a lot of schools are looking at keeping kids outside more, and I really like this idea. I think it's really important. It comes with its challenges, of course, but it's a good discussion to be having right now. So that's another layer, ventilation. Okay, so those are the main layers of protection that we have in schools. So once we get out of the school, start talking about layers of protection in the community. And many of these layers are layers that have been added over the last few months. Okay, so here's Quinn in school with all these layers, and now we're going to talk about community protection. Okay, so masks. So a lot of people have started using masks, and that is, although it may not be the most effective layer, it is a very significant and helpful tool that we can use to help prevent community transmission, because we know that this virus can be transmitted through people that are asymptomatic, so people that don't even have symptoms and might not go on to present them for a few days. So masks are an important part of not only protecting our community and our economy, but you can see how this is also going to help protect schools. Another layer are small social bubbles. It's still important when kids go back to school to keep our social bubble small, and maybe we need to look at even keeping it smaller because we are going to have greater exposure. And I'm speaking to those who obviously have children going to school or have close contact with children that are in school. So that's another layer. Next layer, physical distancing. So we all have been physical distancing out in public, and we need to continue doing that. That is another layer of protection. Are you getting the idea here? I'm sure you are. Hand washing and cleaning. We've all had to be much more diligent with washing our hands and cleaning high-touch surfaces, and it's important that we continue to do that and even get a little bit better and more vigilant at that. Especially cleaning high-touch surfaces like doorknobs, light switches, anything that children or families are touching quite often is really important. And we also need to reinforce hand washing to our kids, because I've noticed with my kids that they're really good for a while and then we kind of slack off and then they get a little bit lazy, and so we really have to instill that and lead by example about good hand washing. Testing and contact tracing. So when all of this started, we didn't really have very much in terms of testing or contact tracing. Contact tracing is when someone who's tested positive lets the public health know about who their contacts have been, and then those people are told to self-isolate. And this is a really good way to control community transmission. And I know that our province is investing heavily in testing and contact tracing right now, because it is very key to controlling the pandemic, and it is also one of the ways that we are protecting schools, okay? And then on the outer surface here, we have the 14-day self-isolation for international travel. So you can see that Quinn here, although Quinn is in school, and although Quinn is also not alone in school because there are teachers, there are other students, of course that's a factor. But I just want you to see all of these layers that society has in place to help prevent that this virus gets into the schools and to your child. And the other consideration that I want you to make here is that Quinn doesn't stay in school. Quinn goes out to the community, Quinn comes back to school, Quinn comes out to the community, Quinn goes back to school. So it's very important that each family think about where and what activities they are participating in. And also pay attention to what is going on in the community and what is going on in your region in terms of cases. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so what can we do as parents? We know that the school is trying to do everything they can, and as a society, we're trying to do everything we can, but what can we do as parents just to feel that we are a little bit safer? And it's not just about feeling that we're safer, but also what measures can we take to ensure that our children and our families are safer and that we're not transmitting this virus nor bringing it home. So just a few quick tips for you. We can limit travel. Maybe now is not the time to go visit someone at Thanksgiving. Maybe now is not the time to have your child participate in multiple sports. Maybe now is not the time to be going back and forth, say to visit your relatives, things like that. So we can limit our travel. We can also continue to keep our community context low. So think about play dates. If you're going to do play dates, try to keep them outside for as long as possible. Think about before and after school care. Can you arrange for some kind of before or after school care with someone that is within your bubble, rather than exposing your family and your children to a whole other set of people? I know that's not always possible, but it's something to think about. Hygiene at home. I've already spoken a little bit about ensuring that hand washing is happening and ensuring that it's happening well and cleaning high-touch surfaces. You can change your kids' clothes when they get home. It probably isn't necessary, but if it's something that, we know the virus is sticky and it can stick to surfaces. So if you want to do that, it doesn't hurt. Keep your kids' fingernails short, okay? And this is not just about the virus. This is just about hygiene in general. We know that kids can pick up all kinds of germs and dirt and that kind of thing under their fingernails. So keep your kids' fingernails short. Maybe every Friday or every Saturday you're going to cut their nails. Keep them short. Wash your lunch kits and backpacks more often, or you could even use maybe like a plastic Ziploc bag or some kind of bag that you could maybe just rotate rather than using lunch kits. It's just an idea. You don't have to do it. Consider a mask. So even if masks aren't being mandated in your child's school, you can still send your child to school with a mask. And we still have a couple of weeks. So if your child isn't used to using a mask and you're worried about them wearing it all day, maybe get them to wear it for 20 minutes at a time, half an hour at a time, and slowly build up. And send them to school with, maybe 2 or 3 masks and just see how that goes. You would be surprised at how good these kids are with maintaining proper hygiene, knowing how to put on a mask with the ear loops, how to take it off with the ear loops, and how to sanitize their hands before and after. It's quite impressive how well they can do. No fluffy gadgets or stuffies on backpacks or going to and from school. I've seen a lot of kids who like to put little trolls, little things with like a lot of little hair and stuffy things on their backpacks or at school or things like that. Now is not the time for that. We just need to stick to basics and just remove those things, keep them at home. You'll know that they're safe. You won't have to worry about them when your child brings them home from school and wants to start playing with them. So try to keep those things at home. Cell phones. This is not so much an issue with the younger kids, but with older kids, and I'm sure teachers might welcome this. Maybe now's the time to just leave the cell phone at home or keep the cell phone in your locker. And I know that different schools have different protocols. Cell phones certainly could be a way that the virus is transmitted. We hold our cell phone close to our heads, we touch it with our hands, and we know that cell phones can already carry a ton of different bacteria and dirt, that kind of thing. So cell phones, just try not to take them. Do what you can just to limit your kids' exposure with a cell phone.
That's all I'm going to say about that. And get tested even when symptoms are mild. Colds and flus are going to happen, and we need to seek testing and get tested even when symptoms are very mild, because we know that this virus can present in different people in different ways. And so if you get tested, you will know whether this is the virus or not. And it really does. I went through this process myself with my child a few weeks ago, and it really is peace of mind. You get tested, and you also know that you're doing what you can to protect your community, because if you are infected or if someone in your family is, then we're able to do contact tracing and really lock that down so no one else gets infected. So it's about being a good community member as well. And what to watch for. So watch for case numbers in your region. If you're concerned, watch for those case numbers. And the BC CDC is a great website. It's up to date, and it will tell you about case numbers, and it will often break it down by region. And watching it by region is really important, because often what is happening in one region is very different from what is happening in another region. So that's an important thing to watch out for. Watch out for community outbreaks in your region. So where is the outbreak? How big is the outbreak? What are the numbers like? And of course, the schools are going to keep you up to date about this as well. And then there's the R naught number. So if you want to get a little bit more technical, this is called the reproductive number. We want to keep this reproductive number at less than 1. This is a way of measuring the number of cases that one case in the community would possibly produce in a susceptible population. So if you start to hear that the R number is above 1, or they're getting concerned about the R number, it's time for you to start maybe just paying a little bit more attention to what's going on in the news and to what is happening as far as community transmission goes. So that's the R naught, or reproductive number. All right, we're almost done. So, we can do this. I really think that we're going to be able to open schools and do it safely. Everyone is working really hard and diligently to make this happen. And as parents, we don't have to just be bystanders and feel like we're just sending our kids, to the wolves. We're not doing that. There are a lot of layers that are in place to protect our children, to protect our communities. So pay attention to what's happening in the community. Pay attention to what's happening in your family. Think carefully about activities that your family is going to be involved with. Analyze what risk are you comfortable with as far as community activities go, as far as things that are not necessary to do. And it's good to plan ahead. Thanksgiving is coming, Christmas is coming, and we need to start thinking about these things. These kinds of activities we are going to have to put more thought into as time goes on here. So I hope that this has been encouraging. I hope that you feel a little bit more empowered and a little bit more educated in making a decision about how or when to send your child to school. If you do have any questions, please feel free to contact me or email me. I am not a virologist. I am not an infectious disease expert, but I am a pharmacist and I am a mom. And I really hope that this will help reduce a little bit of the anxiety over sending our kids to school in the coming weeks. So thank you very much. Take care and stay healthy. Bye-bye.